newspaper, Vanguard newspaper, and Guardian newspaper. Starting with Punch newspaper, 2027, Wike teases opposition, Tinubu called to minister for APC. Democracy Day tension, protesters mobilize as Tinubu address NAS. You can also find this on this paper. Tinubu woos Wike to join APC. Rivers 2025 budget plans for Fubara's return, says Ibas. You can also check this out. Natasha, appeal court strikes out Akpabio's motions, imposes 100,000 naira fine. You can find these and more on Punch newspaper. And going to Vanguard, 32 years after June 12, democracy declining under APC PDP, Afenifere, Ohaneze, ACF others speaking there. Lagos Airport drama airpiece Oshomole in War of Words. Tinubu's government has failed to improve quality of lives, says Baba Ahmed. You can also check this out on Vanguard newspaper. June 12, Fubara reaffirms commitment to rule of law, inclusive governance. You can check that out on Vanguard newspaper. And now to Guardian newspaper, Tinubu cancels broadcast to address National Assembly on Democracy Day. Oshomole accuses ARPIS of exploitation, denies disrupting operations. We didn't approve history textbook with alleged errors, says Education Ministry. You can find this and more on those national dailies this morning.
Well, thank you so much, Eni, for giving us the headlines this morning. Let's now go into having a conversation. Join us this morning is Joshua Moses. He was here last week, and I'm happy to have him here again today.
Certainly.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you very much. Happy Democracy Day.
Yeah.
Like you wished me when I said.
Exactly. I think it's just a good way to kick off the conversation. Yeah, 26 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria. Would you say that we've benefited from how we run democracy in Nigeria?
The only thing we've benefited, and which is what I think we are celebrating, is the uninterrupted. Every other thing in between,
yes,
is up for grabs. There are some wins, there are some losses.
Okay.
Now let's give a little historical overview. Military era ended 1999. We were shedding the Obasanjo administration, and then we moved over to Umar Yar'Adua administration. Got to Jonathan out of doctrine of necessity. Jonathan, we had the whole fuel subsidy issue. Moved off from Jonathan, went to President Muhammadu Buhari. Now here's where democracy was celebrated. Everybody thought Jonathan wasn't going to leave. He wanted to be president at all costs, but he said, no, my ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. So he vacated office. For the first time, an opposition party took over power, and then Muhammadu Buhari did an uninterrupted 8 years, and then we have the current administration that we have. Now, under Muhammadu Buhari, we had the NSAS protest. These were some of the testing moments that tested our democracy.
Yeah.
And in between those pockets from Obasanjo till now, we've had changes in the National Assembly, upheavals there, strikes, protests. A whole lot has happened to, I would say, enrich our democracy. But the question is, did we learn? The answer is no, because looking back at our current position, are we better off? The idea is it depends on where you're looking at it from. The civic space has shrunken. The so-called dividends of democracy we were all hearing about when they said we were going to move into this system of government. I'm not sure we have quality free education. Where you have free education, you don't have chairs, you don't have teachers. We've seen improvement in certain areas when the Jonathan administration rebased the economy. Nigeria became one of the top performing economies. We've had breakthroughs in entertainment, the fintech space, but in our core political space, we've gone under. One of the reasons we are celebrating today is June 12th, the one in quotes, the freest and fairest election. Not even in quotes, everybody or almost everybody adjudged it to be the freest and fairest. Yeah. Now, when Obasanjo, when Yar'Adua took over power, he said the election that brought him was not free and fair. So we clearly didn't learn any lesson from June 12th. Now, subsequent election so far has been contentious. Everybody has gone to court. Now, it's even in the last few years, the court has not overturned any other elections again. If you win, you win. They just give it to you and you move on. So we cannot say that the process of selecting our leaders has become more credible than the June 12th we are celebrating. So uninterrupted, yes, but the crux of what today is, which is MKO Abiola's election, I don't think we have performed as much as the citizenry would hope that the country would have performed. The elections are even more flawed, despite all the improvements, technological improvements, human capacity training, and a whole lot that has gone into that space, but we are still, somewhere far behind.
All right. I mean, over time, like you said, the process, the democratic process has experienced a lot of hiccups in terms of electoral process. What do you think we can do to strengthen the democratic process or system to favor the people's will?
So some adage says you cannot wake up a man who is pretending to be asleep. When a system is purposefully designed, like I mentioned, June 12th was adjudged to be free and fair. The question is, why have our political class failed to see that this is the blueprint for the citizenry going forward? The idea is when you empower the office of the citizen, the office of the politician or the political leader loses influence. And a lot of people who go into politics are there for money and influence. Now, what happens if, for instance, there's no allure of office, you don't have all the extra codes you have, you don't have all the benefits you have, and the citizen decides that, no, you're not performing well, we'll take you out. Now, the political class is afraid or are afraid of an enlightened citizenry. That's why at every election point, at every election cycle, we are divided along tribal lines, we're divided along financial lines, the rich, the poor. There's something to divide us. It's against looking at the indices and saying, this party has not performed well, let's change to this. Now, what is our guiding political philosophy? Almost every party has the same thing. You cannot say this person is for this or this person is for this. And then you see a whole slew of decamping, cross-carpeting, which has also weakened our democracy, because I don't know the philosophy of this man. Yesterday he was in PDP, today he's in APC, and before I even finish brushing my teeth, and he's now in Labour Party. Yeah. And while we are talking about it, the man is now an activist criticizing the administration he was a minister in, and you wonder what happened. Were you not part of those people? I said no, he was not part of it. He was talking from inside. So there is no clear ideology, there is no clear will, political will to ensure. For instance, when Yaradua said the election that brought me in was flawed, how did we move from that statement to what we have now? There were cosmetic surgery, something for you to say, oh, you know what, let's go to the polls, we will do better. But when you get to the in thing, you find out that it's the same script that they're all acting. We had IREV. Suddenly in the last election, it didn't work. And then we had electoral reforms that said if you contest for a certain position, you're no longer eligible. Then we see the courts upturning those things. When you have things like that in our democratic and political space, and I'm being particular about the political space because it is what powers almost every other thing that we do. So when you have things like that, the same people who make these laws break them. Then we're not moving anywhere. So I don't know if there's room for improvement, except when the actors themselves, and when I say actors, including the citizens. I was telling somebody one time that the local government election should be the most important election that anybody should care about. Yes, the presidency is good, but I know Lagos is going to have one very soon. Yes. Now, do we know who the contestants are? Are all the opposition parties equally involved? Do you understand? Because if I don't have a say in who becomes my councillor, I can't demand anything from him. Yes. Now you have situations where councillors, local government chairman, they all live in the capital city. They don't even live in the place they're supposed to preside. Yeah. You're contesting election in normally, but you're living in on the island. And then how do you think that you're going to deliver democracy dividends to people you don't know? Sometimes people come from abroad, and just because there's money, there's influence, they just give them, free tickets to, I think APC has done something recently, they're returning all their current members free automatic ticket, that's what they're calling it. Why are you doing that in a democratic setting? Good luck, Jonathan tried it, and it broke the PDP. Now you see, this is the thing, we don't learn. And a fair process helps everybody at the end of the day. But I don't think the political class wants that kind of system.
It looks as though we haven't sorted some things out from the core. When I say from the core, it looks like yes, we have democracy as almost, I'm going to liken it to a vehicle now. The body is good, but the engine has some little issues. And I think one of the major driving forces in democracy is a constitution. And we have a constitution right now that was created majorly by the military. And we're using that to run our own democracy. How can we change that?
Well, the question is the current constitution that we currently have. How far have we gone with obeying it?
Well, a lot of times we look at it, we point to it. I mean, there was one issue that it was really used at last election when there was that conversation about if the IREF should work and upload results directly, into the server or not. So at different times we've seen politicians point to the constitution, even though most of it looks like as though they do that when it favors them.
So that's the point I am making. You can't keep faulting the document that in the true spirit of it, you've not even taken time you're not obedient to the spirit of the law. You understand? And then let's look at our history. We've had so many constitutional reforms. We've also made additions and subtractions from the Constitution. We've done financial acts. We've done electoral reform acts. We've passed a lot of bills into laws to help the current Constitution adapt and fit into the democratic space that we're currently operating in. But at every turn, you find people challenging that same document and trying to interpret it in a way that suits them. You have currently now, I don't know how many people who currently say they have confidence in the judiciary. Mm-hmm. Now, because when we talk about democracy, most of the time our focus is on the presidency, the political class. But we are talking about the legislature. I'm also talking about the judiciary.
Yes.
Now, if you walk through the judiciary, you will see how many scandals within the last 24 years that has rocked that place. Party orders, a high court in Kano will give a conflicting judgment. Another high court in Rivers is going. Currently, now we are at an impasse in Rivers State, where a sitting governor, a democratically elected sitting governor, was unilaterally suspended by the presidency. Now, you think Nigeria can shock you? Just sleep and wake up the next day. Something worse than what we thought happened.
Then maybe do you think we should rework the democracy now for ourselves? Because we claim to be taking this concept of democracy from, of course, outside the Western world, mostly America, for example. But it looks like we're not practicing it to the core. Looking at how much control the federal government has in terms of allocation, looking at the control. A good example is what's even happening in America right now with the whole protest and President Trump saying they're releasing more troops in the National Guard to go to Los Angeles, right, to maintain law and order. And the governor is literally challenging him for that. We really can't see that happening here in Nigeria.
You also have a billionaire like Elon Musk challenging Trump after first supporting him. Which Nigerian billionaire can do that to the presidency and get away with it? So the question is, culturally, we are designed, I think the political class has designed a system that the citizens or the other part are subservient to it. Now we've also codified a whole lot of monetary reward in our electoral system. If you go to some parts of Europe, you see politicians who earn almost minimum wage. Can we have a situation where politicians here earn minimum wage? If a politician was collecting, I think minimum wage is 75,000 naira right now, right? If every politician was earning 75 naira right now, do you think that would have some of the issues we are having? Let me give you an instance. How much do you think it costs to contest a governorship election? We are all journalists. We cover these things. One time I asked, I think one of the politicians, I said, why INEC had a law that they were going to control election spending, or they were going to look into it. Has INEC ever come out to say this is how much this person spent or overspent? Constitutionalism, it's there. That you shouldn't spend a certain amount of money running for office. But expression of interest form for maybe governorship is almost 500 million in certain parties. Now, you as an eligible person, constitutionally you are eligible, but you can see how you're disenfranchised. You can't go to your state and say, because I don't think you have any 500 million lying around idle. So if something happens and somebody says, you know what, I find you very good for a good material for governor, he gives you 500 million, you're forced to go and meet other unscrupulous characters to raise the rest of the money for the campaign. Win or lose, you're going to try to recover that money. Yeah. So you can see how so much money has influenced, again, money and influence. Yeah. So if we want to really change this, let's make those offices less rewarding for the people who occupy them, and then it will channel their focus into service, I believe.
All right, so we have a conversation with Moses here, talking about Democracy Day and the essence of democracy, looking at it from the perspective of Nigeria now. You can send in your messages, and you can also call us. We'll be taking your calls and your messages right after this.